안녕하세요, 여러분의 한국어 선생님 고빌입니다. We are now at the 7th episode in this series where I analyze the Korean speaking of the group ATEEZ, which is an 8-member group that debuted in 2018. If you're new here, I am a Korean teacher. I have over 12 years of teaching experience and 20 years of learning the Korean language. And in this video, I'll be breaking down the Korean speech of Wooyoung. I'll be giving my professional analysis of him as a Korean speaker and sharing any unique expressions or words that he uses, analyzing his handwriting, as well as sharing just anything about how he speaks Korean that stands out to me. And there is a lot that stands out. But before I do that, I need to thank the sponsor of this video, my Patreon supporters and channel members. You are the reason that I don't have to put sponsorships in these videos. And if you would like to help support my channel to make more and better Korean language content, please consider becoming one of my Patreon members or channel members. And there are links in the description box of this video. As a member, you'll also get access to bonus content like Korean cheat sheets, lesson outlines, and worksheets. And you'll also get to help me choose the next group that I analyze. So let's get right into today's topic, Wooyoung. Wooyoung was born in 1999 in a district called Ilsan, which is in the city of Goyang and is located just northwest of Seoul. And just like Yeosang, before joining KQ Entertainment, Wooyoung was also previously a trainee at Big Hit Music, which is of course the record label of BTS and TXT. In fact, Wooyoung left Big Hit Music after Yeosang did, and they both went over to KQ Entertainment. And the reason was because they were close friends and Wooyoung didn't want to leave his side. So let's talk about my first impression of Wooyoung. And you might already know what I'm going to say.
하나, 둘, 셋. 하나, 둘, 셋.
Wooyoung has this unique laugh, and I can't say I've heard anything like it before. It really stands out. He just always sounds like he's having the time of his life. He's either completely calm and speaking softly, or his laughter is the only thing you can hear in the video. And I got the impression that he's just someone who likes to be happy and to make others feel happy.
야, 다 할 수 있는 거 아니야? 다 할 수 있지. 아니 진짜 천상 연예인이야. 여기서 유일하게 예능을 선택했어. 혼자 돋보이려고. 나는 너가 옆에서 너가 같은 팀에서 빛나는 거 볼 수 있어서 참 좋다.
Hongjung is complimenting him and saying that he was born to be an entertainer and that he chose to make everyone happy. So he seems like a positive person, and I knew that he'd be a fun person to analyze from the first day that I started researching for the series.
괜찮아요?
They didn't put this in the subtitles, but did you notice that they cut the video immediately after he reacts? And then when they come back, Wooyoung looks embarrassed. I'm pretty sure that they cut the video because he immediately swore when he got startled. And then he asks the staff member, 괜찮아요? Is that okay? And I think he was referring to what he just said and asking if they'll still be able to use the video because he swore. But really, I doubt that the staff was surprised at his reaction, considering it was Wooyoung. But besides being goofy a lot, I found out that Wooyoung also has a talent for and seems to enjoy cooking. Okay, so let's get into the part of this video where I talk about his speaking. And my first impression of how Wooyoung sounds when he speaks Korean is, well, here's a clip. Wait, sorry, that was the wrong clip. That was how Wooyoung sounds when he screams Korean. This is the actual clip of how Wooyoung sounds when he speaks Korean.
멤버들! 우리 예전에 숙소에서 그 라면 대란 있었던 거 알아? 사실 난 거 같아! 나도 사실 긴가민가한데 아니 암튼 나인 거 같아 미안해! 나 때릴 거야?
I I apologize. That was how Wooyoung sounds when he's shouting Korean. Now, I really do have a clip of him speaking at a normal volume, and I'll share it in a second. But while we're here anyway, pay attention to his intonation. Now, again, he's shouting out here, but you can hear how wild his intonation gets as his voice gets louder. And I want to look at 3 sentences in this clip to really make it clear how he sounds when he raises his voice.
사실 난 것 같아! 사실 난 것 같아!
First, we have this sentence. He starts his sentence by going up and then a bit down again, which is normal, but he ends his sentence by raising his intonation as if it were a question. Okay, next sentence.
나도 사실 긴가민가 한데! 나도 사실 긴가민가 한데!
Notice again how he raises his intonation at the end of each segment. When he says 사실, it goes up really high. Again, normally in Korean, you'll drop the intonation slightly at the end. You'd only want to raise your intonation at the end of a sentence or at the end of a part of a sentence if you're trying to ask someone a question. But even if you do that, you'll usually only raise your intonation in the last syllable or two, not the entire word. Now, he does lower the very end of the sentence, 한데, but only barely. Now, let's listen to the last sentence.
아니 안 돼! 나인 것 같아! 미안해! 아니 안 돼! 나인 것 같아! 미안해!
He's raising his intonation at the start of each part of the sentence and then lowering it at the end, but everything between that is just whatever he wants. The end where he lowers his intonation, he either lowers it too early, like when he says 나인 것 같아, and it lowers 3 syllables before the ending, or he lowers his ending too late, like when he says 미안해, and he lowers it after he already starts saying hey, like in the middle of the syllable. For comparison, let me show you an example of his intonation when he's not shouting.
우리 멤버들이 술을 별로 안 좋아해요. 근데 내가 진짜 맨날 감동받는 게 뭐냐면 다음날 스케줄 없을 때 가끔씩 이제 저녁에 소주 한 잔을 혼자 해요. 그러면 성화 형이 앞에 앉아가지고 야 술 친구 해줄게 이러면서 똑같은 소주잔에다 물을 따라요. 저랑 이렇게 짠을 해요. 짠을 하면 성화 형이 이거 물인데 연기를 되게 잘해주더라고.
He's explaining how Songhwa will drink with him, but just drink water, but he'll pretend that it's actually a drink, and he'll be like, wow, it's really strong. Wait, though, I have to apologize because that was a clip of Wooyoung right when he started drinking. So, of course, we're not going to get a clear picture of his intonation when he's drinking. But let's look at a part of this, what he said, real quick anyway.
우리 멤버들이 술을 별로 안 좋아해요. 우리 멤버들이 술을 별로 안 좋아해요.
Again, he lowers his intonation at the end, but it's at the very end where he says yo. So it sounds like yo. Okay, but really, we need to hear him speaking normally. So can I please get the correct clip this time?
그게 아니라 근데 이거 수면 내쉬고 내 정신을 할 수 있는 게 아니잖아. 나 일단 화장실 좀 갔다 올게. 기다려봐.
No, I said normally, not after he drinks more. Okay. Let's just look at one sentence he says in this clip.
근데 이거 수면 내쉬고 내 정신을 할 수 있는 게 아니잖아.
There it is, that really short drop at the very end of his sentence on the final syllable. 아니잖아, 아. And you can see in a lot of cases where he raises his voice, his intonation will go up high and then keep climbing even more. And it gives his speech a really animated sound, almost like he's voicing a cartoon character. I mean, as a Korean learner, it might bother you because he's hard to understand. But as someone who already understands Korean, I get a kick out of hearing him talk because it's something different than what I'm used to hearing. But okay, we've had some fun now, so let me just show you a clip where he's not screaming or raising his voice or drinking. He's just talking. He's not even standing up. So here's the clip.
다들 아시죠? 저기 에이티즈는 리더 없으면 안 굴러가는 거. 이거 난 정신이 말짱하다니까.
This isn't the right clip either. This was from when Wooyoung was sedated at the hospital. Of course, he's not going to talk normally in that condition. Well, let's just see what we can point out from his speaking here. Ignoring his slurred speech for a moment, let's look at his intonation in this sentence.
난 정신이 말짱하다니까. 난 정신이 말짱하다니까.
I don't really know what's going on here. It's not the type of intonation I would recommend imitating if you're currently learning Korean. So let's just skip this thing and finally, let's just get to the actual clip that I wanted to share. Let me see if I can find it on here actually. Okay, I think I found it. Here's the clip I wanted of Wooyoung speaking normally, not screaming, not shouting, not drinking, not sedated.
또 뭐 하고 싶은 거 없어? 난 그거 괜찮은 거 같은데 식당 그 분식집 같은 거 하는 거?
I was actually hoping for a different clip, but whatever, this one works, I guess.
난 그거 괜찮은 거 같은데 식당 그 분식집 같은 거 하는 거?
What I wanted to point out is that even when Wooyoung isn't screaming or excited, he tends to speak really fast. I'd say he is the fastest speaker in the group. And even when he's speaking normally, his intonation, it's the same. He's still raising his intonation high in the middle of his words, like a big hill, as well as raising his intonation at the end of his sentence on the very last syllable. So I guess all of those clips we saw before didn't go to waste. That's really just how he normally sounds, right? That's just how he normally sounds, right? Can I just get one more clip to be sure? Maybe a clip outside of the hospital this time? Maybe it'll be different?
형 방송 나가면 이제 형 팬사한테 와가지고 아 성아야 나 누구누구 아이돌 콘서트 갔다 왔어 너 그건 괜찮다 그래서 난 갔다 왔어 근데 2시간 반 동안 봤는데 너무 좋더라 하고 다 다음 팬도 너무 많은데 성아야 나도 같이 갔다 왔어 이러면 어쩔 거야 괜찮아? 괜찮아?
Do I really need to point out that he sometimes talks really fast? It's not just his intonation or his fast speaking that's unique, but it's also how he pronounces words, because Wooyoung often slurs his speech, and the way that he slurs his speech is also a bit unique. Typically, when a Korean speaker is blending their syllables together, it's because they're mumbling when they speak. Like maybe they're not speaking loud enough, or perhaps they're being a bit lazy, and mumbling causes vowels to be blended together, and it sounds like slurring. And that's because when you mumble, you're not moving your mouth clearly enough to pronounce everything. But Wooyoung does this sort of mumbling while also projecting his voice, so he's moving his lips just fine. It's like Wooyoung invented loud mumbling. So I have a clip to show you. And if you listen here to how he pronounces his consonants in this clip, it's almost like he's pronouncing his consonants after he's already started to pronounce his vowels. So his vowels all kind of sound like they're blending together. Just have a listen.
되게 라이브 그 바닥에서 하는 그 플로우 안무 있었잖아요. 그 진짜 너 지금 이래. 되게 멋있었어요.
It's like if you were to try saying the word 한국, meaning Korea, but you start saying an before you pronounce the H sound, and you start pronouncing uk before the G sound, so you get 한국. And I have another clip, so pay attention to his pronunciation here.
오늘도 뭔가 LA 날씨가 그렇게 막 화창하지는 않은 것 같아요. 춥진 않은데 확실히 다른 도시들에 비해 춥진 않은데 보여드릴게요. 아이투 들어요. 우와 눈이 살짝 아프긴 하지만
Whether he's shouting or speaking softly like in this clip, he has a bit of a hoarse voice when he speaks, so it sounds kind of raspy, like he's pronouncing things from the back of his throat. But even with all of this, his intonation, slurring his speech, speaking fast, I still don't think his Korean is particularly hard to hear, except if you're a beginning level learner, because at least his voice is loud and mostly clear. Because if he did all of these things and spoke softly, then it'd be really hard to understand him. But because he projects his voice, it's really not an issue. I just think that he sounds funny and unique, so I wanted to share it with you. But imagine if someone like Mingi had all of these same speaking traits combined with his lower and softer voice.
나는 누구시죠? 민기라고 해.
At least Wooyoung is loud enough for us to still hear him clearly. So thanks, Wooyoung.
이러고 광고 또 성하게 찍으면 나 너무 억울할 것 같아.
Not to mention, most of his clips come with Korean subtitles too. So thanks, ATEEZ video editor. Okay, so now let's talk for a moment about his handwriting. And I have a letter that, sorry, wrong image. And I have a letter that he wrote to ATEEZ, and it looks good. It actually looks really nice, and this is not what I was expecting. His handwriting is clean. He didn't rush. He wrote all of the letters more or less correctly, and there's very little squishing between words. One letter I'd like to highlight is the consonant lir, which is the L letter, because it's common for people to just write it like a snake or like a Z, but Wooyoung actually writes it correctly with 3 separate strokes. You can see it twice in this part, 우리 앞으로도, but you can also see it everywhere in this letter. A lot of people don't bother writing this one correctly because it takes 3 times as long, but Wooyoung does. In fact, Wooyoung is the only member of ATEEZ that writes this letter correctly, which is hilarious. And I found 3 more letters that he also writes uniquely. The first one is the consonant eung, which is the circle letter, and he often writes it kind of left open at the top. You can see it in the very first line, to ATEEZ. Next is the consonant mium, which is the M letter, and he writes it without closing the bottom, so the right part is kind of left open. For example, you can see it toward the bottom in the word 너무. And the third letter that I noticed, which is the most unique, is when he writes the consonant biup, which is the B letter. He writes it like a G in English. And he does that using 2 quick strokes instead of the usual 4 strokes. And besides that, it's all nice and legible, and his syllables look balanced. So let's read one of the sentences that he wrote. He says, 앞으로 1년 동안 잘 부탁드리고 우리 행복해요. Meaning, let's be happy and take care of each other for the next year. And I also found that just like here, he often ends his letters with a short message about being happy. So he just likes to be happy. Okay, so let's look at a different example. This is a short note that Wooyoung wrote anonymously to 민기.
에이티즈 노래에서 정말 중요한 목소리를 갖고 있으며 항상 노력하는 모습이 보기 좋지만 노잼. 노잼 하나야? 진짜 못했다.
What he writes is, your voice is amazing and really important in our songs, but you're boring. And he also said the same thing to Yeosang too.
이 사람이 내 곁에 있어서 정말 다행이라고 생각한다. 근데 노잼이다.
야, 이거 나랑 비슷한데?
And he uses the slang word 노잼, which is a combination of no and 잼, which is short for 재미, meaning entertaining or fun. So it means like boring. And we can see all of the same traits of his writing. The letters that I pointed out are the same here. One more thing is that if you look at how he writes these letters, he writes regular Korean kind of with a calligraphy style. And you can actually see this well in how he writes the English word ATEEZ. Look at how he finishes each letter. The bottoms get thin and a bit smaller, like he was flicking his pen. And this is what you would do, or at least what you can start to do once you get a lot of writing practice. And it just adds a little bit of flair. So now that you know what to look for, you can really see it in the word 있으며. His straight lines here are slightly curved as he flicks them, and they get thinner at the end of the stroke. So not only can Wooyoung speak fast, but apparently he writes fast too. Okay, now next I want to talk very briefly about dialect, because if you're familiar with the song The Real, some of the members get to say phrases in dialect, and Wooyoung also gets to say a line.
춤 들어가요.
What he says is 춤 들어가요, meaning the dance is starting or time to dance. Now, if someone doesn't already know this and they hear him say this line and they know that it's supposed to be dialect because the other lines are in dialect, they might mistakenly think that Wooyoung knows how to speak dialect. But actually, while this expression is from dialect, it's not any dialect where Wooyoung is from or that Wooyoung knows how to speak. So what is it? Well, the ending of this expression is you. And this you ending has the same meaning as the yo ending that you'll hear in standard Korean everywhere. But you is a dialect version that's from the Chungcheong province. So why is Wooyoung, who was born and raised in Ilsan, which is just northwest of Seoul, using the dialect from a completely different province of Korea? Well, there's a very simple answer. Because his producer asked him to.
저희 고향은 아시다시피 일산입니다. 일산이지만 춤 들어가요를 누가 하냐라는 얘기가 나왔을 때 이제 이든영께서 주변에 충청도 분 저희 아버지가 충청도 분이시다. 그러니까 너가 해라. 춤 들어가요 이거 제가 한 겁니다.
So their producer Eden wanted to include an expression from the Chungcheong province, and Wooyoung's father is from that area, so Wooyoung said, hey, my dad's from Chungcheong province, and the producer asked him if he'd sing that part, and the rest is history. Okay, so one last thing now I wanted to talk about, and that is Wooyoung's filler words. Now, a filler word is just any word that's being used not so much for its actual literal meaning, but just to kind of fill empty space in a sentence when you're thinking about what to say. And Wooyoung also uses filler words, and he uses them, I'd say, a normal amount. And some of the filler words I heard him use were, well, here's a clip of the first one.
이제 현장을 넘어가서 챙기고 있는데 이제 겨울이니까.
Yep, it's that word 이제 again, which most people use. Now, 이제 means now or from now, and it's used kind of just like to get the listener's attention, like saying, now I'm going to say something, so listen to me. But Wooyoung doesn't use this word excessively. In fact, he doesn't overuse any filler word. But while we're here anyway, I'll still point out a couple more filler words that you can look out for.
가가지고 이제 막 라볶이 먹고 컵라면 먹고 막 육개장 먹고 이랬던 게 제일 재밌었던 것 같은데. 맞아요. 사실 저희 세대는 그냥 막 나가서도 막 경찰과 도둑 막 이런 거 술래잡기 하고 막 놀았잖아요.
In addition to 이제, you'll also hear him use 막, which is used in casual speech, and it means like or just. And here's one more word that he sometimes uses.
한 비행기를 탔는데 되게 약간 우주선처럼 되어 있어. 되게 멀리 떨어져 있는데도 되게 노랗게 다시 오니까 되게 좋네요.
되게 is a slang word and it means really or very. And it has a similar meaning as the words 진짜 or 정말, which also mean really, except it's only for casual situations. But again, Wooyoung isn't using this word any more than the average Korean speaker. However, there was one word that I found him using a lot, and it's not a filler word, but I found that he likes to use it. In fact, he likes to use it so much. See if you can find it in these clips.
부탁드리기가 또 너무 죄송해가지고 오늘 공연 너무너무 잘했고 다닐 때마다 너무너무 신기한 것 같아요. 네, 카페 여러분들 너무너무 진짜 감사드리고 애써주시고 너무 이윤한테 너무 고마웠다. 그래서가 너무 좋은 것 같아요. 너무 이뻐가지고 ATEEZ 너무 좋아요. 너무 이쁘더라고요. 너무너무 이쁘고.
The word that you're hearing is 너무, which actually means too much. So you can use it before any sort of description to mean that something is too whatever, like the weather is 너무 추워요. It's too cold. But when this word is used in regular everyday speech, it can also be used to just mean so much or just so. And saying 너무 추워요 could also mean just it's so cold. And I noticed Wooyoung using this word almost as much as he'd use other words like 진짜 or 정말. And I think he just likes using this word because it makes what he's saying a bit more emphatic. And I think that it fits his personality. So I won't call this a filler word. It's just Wooyoung's style of speaking. Okay, and although I could keep going, we still have one more member left. So that's enough about Wooyoung for today.
저 어렸을 때부터 진짜 홍차를 좋아했어요. 홍준 씨여서 그런가?
If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and also subscribe for more Korean learning content. Thanks again to the sponsor of this video, all of my Patreon supporters and channel members. And if you would also like to help support me so I can make new and better Korean language content, there are links in the video description box. Thanks for watching and I'll see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐!